I think I had $3,000 in my bank account, which, I mean, that's not even a month's rent in Bondi. You know, whenever you do something that really connects you to what you love and lights you up. And for me, it just happens to be food and cooking and sharing those concepts and ideas and watching other people kind of flourish within that. The world is not as it is, it's how we see it. When I left the UK 5 years ago, and I needed that space to be like, who am I? What do I love? What lights me up? What brings me passion? What brings me close to this feeling of connection, other people, and purpose and drive and all of that stuff? Pay attention to the things that we're doing, why we're doing them, how it feels, and how it sits with us, because we're all going to be different.
Welcome back to the Frankie Lee podcast. Today we are joined by the one and only legend, the Sunday Times best-selling author, the one, the only, the cookbook sensation herself, food for the soul, Miss Lucy Lord. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me on, Frankie. It's good to see you.
It's good to finally see you after I sat here for 10 minutes trying to figure out how to let you into the room.
Trying to figure it all out.
Honestly, yeah. Because this is obviously Lord's in Lord. Where are you in the UK? Or are you in Scotland?
No, I'm not in Scotland. I'm just outside of Cheltenham, which is above Bristol, below Birmingham, in the Cotswolds somewhere.
So it's a beautiful place. It's a beautiful place. I think the best place for us to start with this podcast, Lord, for the people, obviously a lot of your people that follow you will already know about your journey, but for the people on my end that don't, I suppose the best place for us to start is obviously you. I want to start with why you left the UK originally to come to Australia, and then everything that's happened for you since then, because I think there's a lot that's happened in that kind of juncture of your life. So kind of give us a bit of a brief indication of why you just flew out the UK, really.
Yeah, I mean, it was 5 years ago, just over 5 years ago since I left originally. And I think, long story short, it was just an accumulation of just not being happy and just slowly kind of driving down this road of complacency and getting a bit fed up with everything and having ticked off all of the boxes that social societies give us to fulfill, which are things like have a good job, have a nice car, buy a house, good friends, all of that stuff. And I was ticking all those off, but there was still this unfulfillment, I suppose, within me. And I just got caught up in really bad habits, as everyone does, of just going out every weekend. And then it kind of dribbled into during the week, 3 times on a weekend, just going out, just partying, just getting shit-faced every time. And waking up, hating yourself, regretting, kind of digging that hole deeper, to the point that I was just like, I just want to get out. I just want to get out. I hate the habits and the environments that I'm in. I just want a fresh start. And it just so happened that a friend of mine who I went to school with in Scotland was in a similar position. She lived up in Edinburgh, and she was like, what, let's just move somewhere else. And it was like that. And within 6 months had packed up everything, rented the house out, ticked all those boxes, and was on a flight. And we did 3 or 4 months traveling before moving to Sydney. But there was no intention to stay there for.
You just came for a little travel.
2 years. It was just like, let's just see what happens. I knew I didn't want to come back to the UK, but I knew I wasn't going to be there forever. I just thought, for now, it was just, I just want to get out and just start building something until the time that changes. It's
kind of one of them things with the UK. I think it seems real different in Australia. Like everyone's kind of more open to a more entrepreneurial type thing than what I noticed back in the UK. Back in the UK, we'd taught to get a job, get a trade, do this, do that, go to uni. I suppose you pursued uni, I pursued carpentry and joinery and do the trade. We both ended up with property and this and that and doing all the social signalling stuff. I had the sports car, the penthouse apartment and all this stuff. You had the house, all that crap. But then you sat there and you're in your mid-20s now and you're thinking to yourself, well, I've got all these things that society tells me that I should have, but I feel kind of lost. It's not really. Is that kind of how you felt too? Because that's how I felt. 26 years old, I was like, there's nothing, I've got all this, I've got all these things, but I don't, I don't feel like I've done nothing. Like, do you know what I mean?
It was exactly that, and it was just this feeling of emptiness kind of inside, which was there in a kind of like a small way, and then gradually over the years kind of compounded into quite a big feeling, and was, you know, quite deep in the realms of depression and all of these prescription medications for depression, anxiety, sleep problems, but then the kind of partying lifestyle and going out and smoking and binge drinking and all the rest, staying up until 7 a.m, just feeds that and makes it worse. And I was listening to your podcast with Paul Moore a couple of days ago,
Yeah,
and
Morty.
I love him anyway, but I love
He's a
how
great lad.
yeah, he's great. I love how he said, you know, I have no doubt that if my habits were to change, I'd be back on that cliff. You know, and
Yeah.
it's not, what I've come to understand is it's not so much our environment and where we live and whether I'm in Sydney on Bondi Beach or whether I'm, you know, in the UK in the middle of summer and it's raining outside. It's very much the weather inside that counts. And
I love
our
that.
habits and stuff that
I
reinforce that.
love that. This is why I got you on here, Lord, because you drop some absolute pearls of wisdom. It's the weather inside yourself that has just, honestly, I felt warm when you said that. You hit things from a different level. I tell you, this is
Because I heard it's freezing in Brisbane.
No, it's not too bad. No, it's not too shabby. Like define freezing. 18 degrees, 20 degrees, not very freezing. Is it? Like, come on.
Okay.
It's pretty good here, Lord. Come on, it's good. But
It is.
No, it's interesting you say that because obviously a lot of people work on external things, and growing up in England, for me personally, I was working on a lot of external things. That's why I was saying about the house, the car, the body, all this other stuff that I was working on. There wasn't a lot of mindset work going on. It's only when I came to Australia and I landed here and I saw the abundance of opportunities and all these things that were out there for the opportunities for likes of me, for the likes of you, for the likes of James, Darren, all these people that have come here and made something for themselves or tried or made something better for themselves. It's just like, it just opens up your mind to everything, really. When you landed here, and obviously you're in Sydney, did you just sit there one day? Because it happened to me about a week into Australia. I sat there on the beach one day and I just looked out and I thought, do you know what? There's no way. There's no way on God's earth that I can just. I've got to stay here for for a time because there's so much I've got to do here. Did you ever get that point when you felt that?
Probably about 3 years in.
3 years, literally.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, and I think that it's so romanticized, this kind of like pack up your stuff and move and, you know, go to Sydney or go to Bondi, go to Bali or all these kind of like real woke places where entrepreneurs kind of thrive. And there's a reason that they do. But yeah, it's probably 3 years because for me, I moved out and I had 5 figures worth of debt on a credit card in the UK, despite having despite having a really good job. Just kept buying things that were way outside of like my means and living this lifestyle that, yeah, I mean, you know, going out every weekend is not cheap. So I had that. I moved to a hostel for 8 weeks in Sydney. I think I had about.
Don't know how you did that. Don't know how you stayed in the hostel.
I mean, at the time, I was so happy because it felt free. It felt free. That's what to me it felt. It wasn't, you know, you're in the UK. This is the person you are. This is the things that you do. This is what you stand for. This is what you own. You kind of drop all the labels. So that to me was really freeing. But I think I had $3,000 in my bank account, which, I mean, that's not even a month's rent in Bondi.
No way, not a chance.
And I had that and no job to go to, no nothing lined up, no car, no friends over there apart from my one friend who she moved into the city and had a job, like a corporate job all lined up. And I wanted to live by the beach. So we kind of lived separately. Didn't know anyone, didn't have anything, just started from scratch really. But it was a very liberating feeling. But I didn't have that feeling of, do you know what, life is really great, or it's working in my favor, or I really need to grasp this opportunity until probably 2-3 years down the line. Because
what a lot of people won't know is that you worked in like the medical type of industry, didn't you, for quite some time in as a job? That's right, isn't it? Got that right?
Yeah. So since pretty much it's been my kind of career since leaving uni, and it was my dream job to go into, and it took me months and months to try and get into, and it was veterinary pharmaceutical sales, which is, I mean, it was a great job, and in the UK, kind of worked up the stages in the ranking that they give you. And then when I moved to Australia, the industry is completely different. And I decided I don't want to be a manager or one of the directors. I just want to be I just want to go back to sales and be on the road. And so I took a huge jump back, which was could be frowned upon on CVs. I took a massive pay cut, and I just absolutely, for the 3 4 years that I did it out there, I just absolutely loved it. Loved it.
And that's what's so important though, when people do take what you perceive as a step back, because the money's less, but it's not really a step back, is it? Because it's a step further towards being happier. So I think it's more of a step forward, but people put it as a step back because the money's less than it actually is. It's just
Yeah, and because society tells you that you should be like work like a very kind of old school stereotypical way of your CV. It should be these incremental changes. You should be at a company for 5 years minimum, keep working up. But I think, again, kind of one of the things about moving over there and dropping all of these labels was that I no longer had to be this like, oh yeah, I'm a manager, or yeah, I'm this and that, or I have this car or this. I was like, I don't care. I don't
yeah,
care about all of
yeah.
that stuff. And that was liberating. And through that, ended up enjoying my job more than ever, because it's a sales role, and it's, you get basic salary and then bonuses and stuff. I ended up earning more, but through kind of accelerating rather than just bog standard salary extras. And yeah, just having more freedom, more time, more freedom, more time, more liberating. And my managers in Australia would be like, right, we're going to put you on this path and you're going to get this. And I was like, do you know what? I don't fancy it. I really don't fancy it. And they'd
Yeah.
kind of be looking at me like, what?
Yeah, but I think they're pretty much way more chilled over here than what we've got in what we've come from in the UK in terms of like the corporate world, especially the corporate world. I mean, I've signed $132,000 deals like in a t-shirt and a pair of shorts, like, and you'd never do that in the UK. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like you can never do that in the UK, but it seems like you can do so much more here. There's so much more opportunity just because of how fluid it can be. Don't get me wrong, in other areas sometimes you have to go back to the UK. Like you're probably better off in the UK now with how you've positioned yourself in terms of your business, but to free up your mind so that you could get to where you are right now, that Australia's been a pivotal point in that. I don't know whether you agree with this statement or not, and I'm just going to throw it out there because I think most of the people that listen to this will either be English or Australian. Like, I think everybody should leave the place where they're born and go to either England, Australia, or somewhere else and go and live in another place for 2 or 3 years of their life, just to clean out and change their whole perspective on how they look at life. Because wherever you're brought up, I mean, when I see a lot of people in like Queensland where I live that have never really left Queensland, they've got a lot of they just don't know how fucking good it is here because they've lived here their whole life, so they've never been anywhere else. Whereas I think because me and you have left and lived somewhere else, we can kind of see it for what it is. Do you agree? Or
Yeah, I think that travel and living abroad or traveling, and not just like staying in a hotel for someone for three weeks, but proper, it doesn't have to be 1-star hostels, but proper traveling, seeing the world, being disconnected from your phone until you have Wi-Fi spots in the middle of Thailand or wherever it is. I really think it's, for me, one of the best things I've ever done. And everybody who I've spoken who has done it has pretty much agreed. But at the same time, I do think that there's people who just have no interest in it. And I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with that. I think it's just different strokes for different folks. And, there's plenty of people who I know, one of my best mates included, who is like, I can't think of anything worse than more than 2 hours on a plane. I can't think of anything worse than hostels and walking all day and all of that. And so I think that if there is something in you, like there was in me and there was in you, and a lot of, the friendship groups that we share and have, if there's anything in you that's burning inside to be like, do you know what, there's a curiosity there about another way of living, or
Something
about
more for you.
almost like a shake, like a snake, like shedding its skin and starting afresh, then 100% do it. But it's romanticized online. I think it always looks like it's really easy and really beautiful, especially when you go to all these beautiful places, and it's not, and it's really difficult. But I think that's where the growth is. That's where the beauty comes from it.
Yeah, and I want to just clarify something. It's certainly not easy because, I mean, and I don't know about you, but I've been broke here a few times as well. And like you said, you came here with $3,000, and coming to Australia with like $3,000 is not a lot of money. Like, let's be honest. I came here with six. You came here with three. The pair of us were absolutely dreaming when we thought of that idea. But you know, you just have to have that amount of like I'll say balls, but like, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't, both for women and men, you have to have the nuts to go and do that kind of thing with that kind of money. Because really, it's, what is it, like you say, in Queensland, maybe like you've probably got 6 weeks rent there, and I'm probably talking about, 12 weeks. It's not a lot of money, is it? It's not a lot of money. But obviously, you cooking's always been something, and baking has always been something that you're obviously passionate about. I can obviously see that from obviously everything you're doing now, right? But when you obviously, what part of it was it when you came to in Australia? Because I know you was always baking on Instagram, but when did you think to yourself, oh, I can turn this into something and start to make a living out of it, and then obviously going on to write a book, and then you know what I mean? There's a lot that's happened here. Like, when did you
Yeah.
when did you start to figure this out?
I think I'm still figuring it out, to be honest. And I think that, again, like Australia is so special to me because it's where so much of the old me, which I really didn't like myself as a person. I hated myself. And I think that so much of the old me kind of went to, laid to rest, and almost like a newer or a new version came to light, or maybe the version that was inside the whole time that just wasn't in the right environment came to light.
What
Because I'm still the same person, just with different habits and beliefs and all that stuff. But the food, I didn't actually know how to cook until maybe early 20s, 21, 22.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah,
did
yeah,
not know
yeah.
how to cook.
What can I just ask? I want to step back there quickly. You said you always hated yourself, and that's quite an aggressive statement for a woman to openly admit and say to an audience like this. But like, what is it that gave you the feeling at the time, Lord, that kind of made you wanna that hated yourself? Like, what was it about it that you give me a bit of an insight into that feeling?
Yeah, and it sounds like it's definitely it's the feeling that I had, and it's the feeling that's true. But whenever I say it out loud, it sounds so abrasive because it's like that's a real
Yeah,
strong word.
it's a strong
And
word.
again,
Yeah,
it's not something that you hear people speaking about, especially when it's so like hashtag self-love and all of that stuff. But I just couldn't stand myself. And I think it's something that's hard to articulate, but it's more of a feeling of like waking up and feeling almost like I was this like apple rotting inside. It all looked fine from the outside, but I'd wake up and there was this undercurrent of just not being happy, not being fulfilled. And mostly outside of that situation, it was just the self-talk that was in my head. It was, you're so ungrateful, you're not good at this, everything you touch turns to shit, you can't do this, you can't do that. And it was more so the negative talk that was going on in my head rather than, waking up, looking in the mirror and being like, oh, I hate myself.
yeah, yeah,
It was
yeah.
very much more of an internal thing.
Do you know what was leading to that so much volume of negative self talk at that particular time? Though? What was driving it?
Yeah, I mean, I can look back now and like, Paul Mort says, I can join the dots now and see that I just wasn't living I mean, true self is such a cliche loaded term, but I just wasn't living in line to my values and the things that I loved to do. And, all of that stuff, I was just chasing salary checks and job titles and
Yeah, yeah,
way too worried about what other people think. Comparisonitis, and just living a life that wasn't on my own terms. It very much felt directed by the world around me. And yeah, just kind of continuing down that path just felt like I was stepping further and further away from my own self and my truth and my like a purpose and passion. And I think there's nothing worse than waking up in the morning and not having anything to get out of bed for. And for probably about 6 months, I really, really struggled getting out of bed. And I would sometimes stay in bed all weekend. and not answer the door, curtains
Really?
closed. Friends would come round. Yeah, friends would come around trying to answer the door, and I just would pretend to not be there. I'd purposely not drink any water so I didn't have to get up and go for a pee, all of that stuff. So it's more feeling than anything I can articulate, but it's just waking up and being like, this is not the life that I am meant to be living or want to live, or one that at the time I felt was worthy of living.
But I love the fact that you've self-identified with that, and then you've obviously pivoted over a period of time into something that has given you that kind of purpose, and you've been able to find it. Similar to how I found obviously podcasting and all that kind of stuff that I love. Do you know what I mean? But like, when you said you started to learn to cook in your 20s, and then obviously then you come to Australia and you start baking stuff. Now, obviously, this is a phenomenal book, guys. You should all go out and buy this, right? Food for the Soul, right? Now, look, I'm gonna be honest with you. You're gonna get fat if you eat too much, but it's good. It's good stuff, right, Lord? Yeah. How'd you go from just like learning how to cook to developing a little bit of a passion for it and a little bit of a feeling for it, and then start to put together this? Like, tell me how the growth happened here. Like, in terms of like you doing it, obviously cooking for friends and all that stuff, and then how did it expand from that?
Yeah, so I think that it's not like I woke up with no purpose and no passion and then realized, oh, it's food and it's cooking, and then just started doing more of that. There was a period of probably 3 years where it was just, I don't know what my purpose is, I don't know what my passion is. And so rather than trying to chase it and label it, I would just spend more time doing the things that I loved.
Yes,
And
yes.
rather than trying to label it and seek it out, I would just, yeah, spend more time finding what I love, pay more attention to what I'm doing and being like, oh, do you know what? I don't really like hit training. Do you know what? I've been going to spin for 4 years and I fucking hate it. Do you know what? I actually really like this, or I feel good after this. And food and cooking was one of those things. And for me, food for the soul and everything around the brands around food for the soul is so much more than just the food. It's the reason behind why we do it, why we eat it, why we're sharing it. It's almost like this form of self-care.
Yeah.
And I really like
Yes.
the tagline whole foods and soul foods. And so self-care doesn't always have to be a green smoothie or a salad or something like that. It can be fish tacos, it can be sitting down with a massive wedge of carrot cake and just spending 5 minutes eating it and enjoying it with a friend or by yourself, rather than just bish bash on the move, grab this, grab that, smash it down without really paying much attention to how we feel before and after it.
Eating it because you've created it, because you're teaching people to create something that they can have a feeling when they eat it, so that it's worth eating, right? Is that kind of the perception of what you want for them to have?
Yeah, it's that feeling of connectedness. It's probably the feeling that you get doing podcasts with people. It's the feeling that yoga teachers get when they teach a class or when they take a class. It's that kind of feeling that you get in meditation or whenever you do something that really connects you to what you love and lights you up. And for me, it just happens to be food and cooking and sharing those concepts and ideas and watching other people kind of flourish within that. And it's not something that I ever thought this is one day what I will leave my job for, at all, like at all. And it took a lot of convincing from other people and friends and watching other people's journeys to really take that step, because probably up until it was published, I still had, a residue of that negative self-talk being like, who are you to
Yeah.
do this? Who's going to buy this? Um, why would someone make your stuff over someone else's? There's hundreds online, blah, blah, blah. So it's really, for me, much deeper than just the food. It's the reason behind why we eat it and why we make it. And yeah, what brings us closer to that feeling of connectedness, I suppose.
Yeah, and I just want to pick on one thing you said there, because I think it's important that people realise it. So I followed you on the peripherals for a lot of years before we actually met and talked and all this and connected in that way. But I always looked at some of your stuff because one thing I noticed about you, Lucy, is that through the last three and a half years of James and Darren's journey, right? You were always there as their like number one support net person in Australia, right? Even though you weren't perhaps on purpose with your own thing like you are right now, but you're always there for other people. And I think that's one of the qualities I noticed in you from the very early days. You've always had those boys' backs, and there's lots of other people's backs in Australia you've had as well, and you're always like really encouraging towards other people, even though that you weren't particularly feeling 100% purposeful yourself at the time. And a lot of people when they're feeling like that get resentful and resent other people's success. But I've seen it for years. You've actually just been there and given some real good advice to those lads as well through the whole journey that they've been on. So I just want to shout you out for that, because I've seen it like firsthand, like how much of a support you've been to them. And that's why when I see everything that you're doing, I see you growing on the socials, and I see your book coming out, and I'm just buzzed for you naturally, because I've seen how many years that you've given to others. Do you know what I'm saying? So I just want to shout you out for that, because I think that's massive.
Oh, thank you. No, I love that. And I think that there's something that's so infectious about people who are just paving their own path. And that's, with both James and Darren and a lot of, their friendship group, it's the people that they attract, and it's the people that, they end up working with or doing things with. And for me, it just, when I leave places and I see or experience people doing those things, I just kind of feel this sense of possibility within myself. And what I've come to understand is that most of the time other people don't want you to do well, or they might like you to do well, but they don't want you to do better than them,
not
because
too well.
Of their own kind of self. Yeah, not too well. It's like do good, but not too well. And I think especially with those boys, my friends, I've never really had that, because I didn't believe in myself at all from the scratch. So I didn't have anything to kind of base my line off. But I do think that the environment you're in, and that's one of the great things about Australia, is it gives you the environment to, work out at 6 o'clock in the morning in a tank top 9 months of the year. The people you're around, all those kind of things, environment wise, are so important. But nowadays it's at our fingertips, because we can connect to people through podcasts, through books. If you're looking around your friendship circle and you're thinking, I don't want to, there's no one here that I aspire to work with, or there's no one here that inspires me, then you can always find it out with your friendship circle. And I think what I found coming back is that a lot of my friends are still doing a lot of the same things, and there's nothing wrong with that. But a lot of people who I might meet for coffee and go out with and party with and all that stuff are not people who I would do that stuff with now. And it's not because there's anything wrong with them or what they're doing and choose to do with their life. It's just because it doesn't really fit
doesn't resonate anymore.
It doesn't resonate. It doesn't fit. It doesn't feel good for me now. It doesn't fit my kind of attractions now. And so what I've come to understand is that the more you pave this path by yourself, it's quite lonely, but you attract and kind of solidify friendships that are similar to you. And so my friendship group has shrunk considerably in terms of, who I would go and hang out with and all that kind of stuff. But the ones who are there are, so inspiring. And it's kind of goes back to those boys. They're paving their own ways. They don't give two shits about what anyone thinks and what they're doing. And
for sure.
For me, that's just inspiring, because I'm like, how can you go out and do that and, have so much of an impact?
Yeah, I think that they've really just embraced life as the fact that you've only got so much time on the planet. Have a go, make a dent, and it doesn't matter whether Cindy down the road thinks you're an arsehole, because at the end of the day, she's not for you. She's not going to buy from you. She's not going to help you go where you going anyway. So a lot of these people that have any negative connotations towards you that's just a self-reflection of what's pointing back at them, saying they need to work on something inside themselves. Because if I trigger someone, or if you trigger someone, or if your success triggers someone, then that's only telling you inside that there's some lack of self-worth that you've got to work on, right? It can only point back at you. So like, that's why it's so good. And I agree with you. Another thing I agree with you on is the fact that your friendships, especially when you start ascending through these journeys that me and you are on, and that everyone else is going on, but your friendships do get smaller, because you will naturally just align yourself with people that make you feel good, that want to support you on your journey and are doing similar things. And that's why your friends are who your friends are. So let's just pivot to this bit, right? So as far as I'm aware, when I was following, you were writing recipes online, right? How did it go from writing recipes online to this book? So,
So,
and I'm going to keep plugging that book because you know what I mean. I'm going to put a link so you can go
um,
buy a book, guys. So make sure you go buy a book because this is the Lord. All right, this is not just anybody. This is the Lord. All right, carry on.
so I built the website. I built a website, which I didn't know how to do, but during the Sydney, I don't know if they were all the way up in Queensland as well, the Australia fires in, I think 2019, was
Yeah,
it
yeah,
Christmas of
yeah, 2019.
2019?
Yeah, I remember 'em.
We had those fires were awful, and in turn, it was in the middle of December, January, February, it was all throughout summer, and I was house sitting for one of the people I worked with in this beautiful house with dogs and pool and on the beach and all this stuff, but it was so horrendous outside, just grey and ashy, and you couldn't breathe. For about 3 or 4 weeks, it was like that. And I just thought, I can't go outside and enjoy summer like I would do. All this horrendous stuff is happening. What can I spend my time doing? And I'd had this idea to start putting recipes on a website because at the time I was doing them on Instagram. Can't remember how many followers I had. It didn't really matter, but I would screenshot under 10,000, but I would screenshot them
Yeah,
whenever people would ask. So I'd have them written up in my notes and then I'd screenshot them and send them through direct message. And I thought it would be really good if I could just put them all on a website and then I could just direct people there. And so I started building this through those Christmas holidays, just by myself, just hanging out every day, just spending hours on a laptop building it, learning how to do all this and that. And I think I had maybe 10 recipes up to start. And all the photos were just taken on iPhone 8 or whatever the iPhone was at the time. They weren't that great quality. The recipes were just
yeah, because
super simple
these
and super
pictures in
easy.
here are phenomenal. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, that's
Oh
the
yeah, yeah. I'm glad you love them,
yeah,
and I think that food photography and stuff, which I'm getting into now, is really important. But then, yeah, I just started building this website, and James and Darren had been on to me for probably the best part of 2 years to do something with the recipes and build an email list and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, I get it, and I like what they do, and I understand it, but it doesn't quite
yeah.
fit what I want to do, and so
It's got to be the
I
right
thought,
time for you and people to tell you to do that because it's obvious
yeah.
to me. It's obvious to me. It's been obvious to me for years about building a massive email list that I could have built a phenomenal email list. I know it's obvious to you. I mean, neither of us are fucking stupid, but the issue is unless you really want to do it and
Yeah.
have the so for you. For me, I can build an email list with a podcast because I'm passionate about the podcast, so it's worth me building an email list. To do that with my other business, I just collected emails. I was like, yeah, cool, collect emails, but like I wasn't really fussed about it. Same with you and this cooking stuff. That's why you're now collecting emails because you're actually passionate about it. But yeah, so so
So it's all of these things. And I think that one of the things about having friends who are, really successful in their own rights is that it can be really annoying because they turn around and like, you should do this, you should do that, you should do this, you should do that. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't want to do that. That doesn't fit for me. And
yeah,
it doesn't feel good for me. And we're different people. And in terms of characteristics, couldn't be further on the end of the spectrum. Like I'm quite shy. I would rather be like hidden in the back at the corner of a party than outright in the middle, being loud and all that stuff. But I think it's really about taking those principles and adopting it into your own way and what feels good for you. And that for me is what I have started to really understand. And there's, success leaves footprints, but you don't have to replicate those footprints. Imagine if I came on and was like, doing a cooking class and almost cookie cut James's approach and was like, you use a fucking margarine, you should use fucking butter, you
yeah,
bellend.
yeah.
Like,
You should though.
it just
I might do it.
it just wouldn't go like that.
Yeah,
I wouldn't feel comfortable doing it. It wouldn't come across as,
it's not authentic,
authentic.
is it? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that you take the principles and really make it your own. And for me, I was like, I don't want to send an email every day. Like the email that I would love to receive, love to open, it goes like this, and this. This is stuff I really like. And it's almost kind of getting lost in your own mind and dreaming
Yeah.
about it. And so I built this email list off of the back of the website. And since then, it's just kind of grown. And yeah, the website's only been going about 18 months. And I think that every time I go on it, I just see things I want to change and I'm not happy with, and I think that's just
That's just a
the
perfectionist,
narrative
though,
of
isn't it? It's just a perfectionist.
yeah, that's just the narrative of the kind of person that I am and people that I'm sure you are and other people are. But then a friend actually said to me, he was like, you should put this in a like you should put your recipes in a book, and I thought, like it was ridiculous. I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. I remember getting his WhatsApp message and being like, oh, come on. And like it just made me feel like nauseous.
Was that Luke? Was that Luke that got you to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was Luke, and
I love Luke. He's such a good guy. Man.
He's so good, and he just thinks big picture, which petrifies me. But he thinks big picture, and he thinks 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, that kind of stuff, which I am not always that good at doing. And I think because I'm so new to a lot of this stuff, I don't really know how to do that stuff. And he had said, like, you should do a book and you could self-publish it and blah, blah, blah. And then as that kind of traction kept building, as the momentum and self-belief from my end kept building, and I would put more time into the things I loved, which was the recipes and the photographs and the creations and the filming it and stories and adding music and making it a real experience, publishers picked up the idea, and then it kind of blossomed into what was then Food for the Soul.
What kind of email list size did you have at the time when you started to get publishers interested in publishing your recipes? Can I ask?
Do you know, it was before I'd even built the email list.
Really?
It was just after I built the website. Yeah, because I built the website, and it was just before I'd started building the email list. And the publishers who are not the ones that I went with, but the publishers at the time who were huge were interested. And so it was just kind of off the back of that I started having a bit of self-belief around it, but also like purpose and like, oh yeah, maybe this is something that we can do. And moreover, how can I help people? How can I share this with people? Because I still want to give out free content, and the email is completely free. It takes me hours and hours and hours a week.
Yeah.
But it's completely free to sign up and to do all that stuff. But I really believe in giving value back. And so I didn't even have an email list when the publishers were interested.
I think though, you, like you say, you just got to kind of back yourself, and the reason, and I just want to go on to that point. The reason why you give so much away for free on to your email list, and the reason why I do this and it's free, right, is because that is why you can then sell a book. Because there are people in your audience that appreciate the value that you provide them, so they will turn out for you and they will buy your book because, and they're still getting a massive amount of value for the cost of that book anyway if they care to read it. It's just so it's like you're giving out something that gives you so much purpose to the world, but then you're getting back a small amount back, but that small amount is a lot to you, and it's something good to do with, isn't it? So I think it's a real good value exchange, it's a real good feeling to do something around something you're passionate about.
I love it. And when I decided to leave my farmer job, and I knew that would then mean leaving Australia and blah, blah, blah. It is the first time I've never not had monthly, apart from when I was traveling, it's the first time that I've never not had like a monthly stable income. And someone turned around to me and was like, you should just charge, £1 per supper club issue. It's worth that. It's blah, blah, blah. And you could make, I think it was like 800,000 a year or something like that. And I thought, you know what? I probably could. I'm sure even if the list didn't grow, even if only 50% of people started subscribing to it, whatever, I was like, I probably could. But I always think of me 5 years ago. And me 5 years ago wouldn't pay for something like that because I didn't even know really how to cook.
Yeah.
And so, or 8 years ago now, but I really thought what would be interesting of me. And I think money for me has always kind of come second, and passion and purpose and that kind of stuff has always come first. And I'm just a huge believer in the more that I give out, be it free content, be it books or events or whatever it is, the more that I give out, the more ends up coming back to you in different ways, be it financially, be it, a sense of purpose or satisfaction or
just that feeling,
helping other people.
Just your own self feeling is worth it. Like that.
Yeah, and you can't put a price on that.
No,
and for me, when I send out a supper club on Fridays, usually Friday mornings, and then you sit down on Saturday morning and they might have, a couple hundred emails of people just saying, I love that recipe, can't wait to try this. Here's a photo of one that I did last week. Hey, this has gone wrong. Can you help me? Love that quote, love this. And I absolutely love it.
And I think there's probably so many people listening to this that probably have always wanted to write a book and do a book, but there, and I think there's a book in everybody. I think there's a book in me. I think there's a book in everyone that listens to this podcast. I probably will write a book eventually, but a lot of people just don't have that self-belief to be able to go and execute on it, to go and get it done. You know what I mean? It's just there's so many excuses that you can make to not doing a book. So obviously, like, I know you would have faced a few of those issues yourself. Like, how from the time when you got a book deal to the time to, like, how long did they give you to put it together once you got this deal?
It was probably, I want to say it took around 2 years or just under 2 years in the making or longer than 2 years from the concept of Luke saying, I think you could pull something together, even if it's an ebook, even if it's a self-published book, that he was saying as a friend, not as, someone who's going to be a part of it at all. He's just, as a friend, kind of like a flippant comment. Probably 2 years from concept, and then as it kind of built, and as the self-belief built, and as the ideas around what I wanted to create and the recipes I wanted to bring and what else I wanted to put in terms of writing and how I wanted the book to feel when you open it and go through the pages. That kind of slowly slotted in as time goes through. But I'd never written one before. I had no idea what I was doing. And the publishers, I mean, they were amazing, but they were pretty much like, yeah, do whatever you want. And I was like, well, do you want a breakfast chapter? Do you want this? And they were like, I don't know, do you? Which was incredible because
you got that license.
Do whatever you want. But there was no there was no structure, there was no guidance, there was no we need this by this date. It was, we need everything by this date. And I remember being like, well, do I just sit on Word and type it out? Do I sit on Pages? How do you want it? Like, just the most random stuff like that. But yeah, probably 2 years from the concept into actually finishing the book.
And so do you just then hand them a load of stuff and then they just go through it all and then put it into a book for you and assemble it for you? Or how does that all go? Because I really don't know, and I'm trying to learn it myself. Like, how does that all work then? You just hand them a big dossier and say, hey, there you go, put that into a book? Or
so kind of it goes in snippets. So the recipes were the first thing, and I was really set with the recipes in that I wanted to test them all several times, and I wanted like friends to test them and to try them to make sure that the recipes work, because there's nothing worse in my experience than picking up a cookbook or a magazine, making a recipe that looks amazing and making it, and either it tastes amazing, but it looks nothing like
nothing like nothing like the photo. Yeah, I guarantee if I cooked anything in your book, it would look nothing like the photo.
Well, have you cooked anything in my book, Frankie?
No, but I've looked through every page.
I'll leave it at that.
I'm not going to sit and lie on my own podcast. I'm telling you now, I've not cooked nothing in your book, but I tell you now, I loved every image in it. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I like that.
But that's the thing. If you did try and make something from it, hopefully it would look similar, because so much of the work has gone in the background. But for me, there's nothing worse than either it looks nothing like the photo which they've sold me. It's like I've been completely catfished on the recipes, or the recipe's really difficult and I find the mythology difficult and it doesn't work. And even if I've tried it 2 or 3 times, it turns to shit. So I really wanted to make sure that the recipes were tried and tested. So we kind of hand over the recipes first, and then they go through them and like do the normal things like grammatical errors, spell checks, like are the eggs at room temperature, or are they from the fridge, or what size of eggs, or those kind of nitpickings. And then literally everything else. And I'm so surprised by this. Is I was like, well, it needs an introduction. Here's my introduction. And they go through and might say like, oh yeah, I think you should expand more on this point or this. But I thought that you hand them this idea, they kind of type it out, make it look all beautiful and pretty, and then publish it. Yeah. But really, that's what I thought too. Kind of, no, which is incredible, because I can open up the book and think, every single word that I've put in has been something that I've typed. Maybe they've, said you need to expand on this, but they haven't typed, none of it's been ghostwritten in the sense
no ghostwriting, no.
No ghostwriting, nothing, even the intros to the recipes, the blurbs at the beginning, the chapter titles, the quotes that I put on every chapter page,
all yours.
Everything is what I've sat down and written, and in the order that I've written it. So they do an amazing job at kind of obviously spell checking it, grammatically checking it, and being like, I think you should expand on this, or this is kind of irrelevant. But other than that, it's pretty much just everything that I've sat down and written. And so you just send it off in segments. It comes back and it's all redlined and commented, and you kind of need
like
to
a school report, like
again.
My school report, eh?
Yeah, like a school report. And you feel like way down there, you hand something in, you're like, I've just spent months doing this, and then they hand it back to you, and you're like, oh. But it's that kind of constant journey.
It's like a constant iteration of your own idea, really. And constantly
and if I had 2 more years on that Blummin book, I would probably keep changing it and changing it, refining it and refining it and refining
Yeah.
it constantly. And now I pick it up, and it took me a while to actually pick it up and read it because I find that I'm quite like judgmental of my own stuff. So it took me a while to pick it up and actually read any of it in chunks other than the recipes. But all I can see now is things I'd expand on, things I'd change, I'd add this. There's nothing I'd take away, but there's loads of stuff that because creation I think being creative just fuels more creativity. And so there's maybe nearly 90 recipes in that book. And off of the back of that, I can think of 100 more I want to do, and
Yeah,
100 more I
yeah,
want to do,
yeah,
and
yeah.
100 more of this. And so it just fuels this constant feed, I suppose.
Yeah, no, I think you're never going to be. If I did 100 podcasts, right, and then I wrote a book about and a chapter, a few pages on every person that I had on the podcast on what I'd learned from them, for argument's sake. Say I wrote that kind of book, and then put my own spin on it, right? Obviously, after 200 guests, you're thinking, well, I could have included so much more in that book. Do you know what I mean? Like than what was written. Well, you're always going to look back 2 years after you've done something and think, oh, I could have done a better job. But you did as good as you could do at that particular time. So, but when you released that book, did you have any idea that you were going to become a Sunday Times bestseller? Like, did you even know how many books you had to sell to become a Sunday Times bestseller?
No, and I don't know how many I've sold today. I don't ask the question. They don't. I'm sure they tell, the book agent, but
Yeah,
I don't ask
yeah,
the question. I don't really want to. I don't really. Not that I don't want to know, but whatever figure they tell me, it doesn't really mean anything
yeah,
to
yeah,
me
yeah,
because I
yeah.
don't know whether it. Because I'm so new to it, I don't know whether it's good or whether it's bad. I just know that it's better than what they had expected, which is
Yeah,
all I'm
phenomenal,
happy with.
phenomenal.
But I genuinely, if I knew that 100 people who I've never met before in real life, so outside of family and friends, if I knew that 100 people had gone out and bought the book, that just it almost makes me feel emotional. It just makes me feel so good.
Because
So
it
the figure
lights you
on
up.
it doesn't really, yeah, it doesn't really. It's not really something that I'm that interested in. But I don't know how many it sold or how many you need to sell or who it was up against or anything like that. And I think that it could have been really easy to compare it to other people and friends who have books out. And I'm quite lucky in that it's a completely different kind of book. It's a
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
cookbook.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's not the same book as what all your friends have done, because a lot of your friends have done like
No,
fitness industry type books, haven't they? So, and other things like that. I mean, your book is just a complete standout from what your friend group does.
yeah, it's a different angle. I mean, it's still, my passion and my purpose and my connection, which I'm sure theirs are as well. But it's just my angle, which happens to be food.
Yeah, yeah, but I just want to know how you felt about inside when you got that call to say that you were a Sunday Times bestselling author, because we talked on here earlier about the amount of struggles that you're going for, and you used the word hate, and I know it was a strong connotation, but you used that word, and it's like, well, how did you feel the day someone rings you and says, Lucy Lord, your book is a Sunday Times best-selling book? Like, did you? Well, I imagine the pride was bursting out your chest at this point, because you've not only done that, you've not only done it, but you've done it with something you're passionate about, you're purposeful with. Like, surely that was a really pivotal point in your time.
It was, but at the same time, it wasn't like, it wasn't, it was, oh, that's amazing. But even if someone
Yeah,
had phoned and had said, your book's number 101, because I think I put everything into it. And like you said, I did the
yeah.
best
You
that
even
I
did the best
could
you could
at
do.
that
Yeah,
time. And there was so much other stuff going on. I really could sit happily and say, even if nothing comes from it, even if, at the time when I brought out the book, I didn't know I'd end up leaving my job and following, a different career or pursuit. Even if none of that happens, I would have just been thrilled to pour my all into everything, to not be 100% happy, and to have done it anyway. And I think that for me is kind of like the life lesson, is that there's no, when you achieve what you set out to achieve, be that a goal or be that anything, extrinsic or intrinsic, it's not like there's a small party for you. There's no trumpets, there's no rainbows, there's
yeah.
no nothing.
It's not an
It's just
outcome;
that feeling.
it's a
There's no
journey.
outcome. It's that, yeah, and it's that feeling inside of, do you know what? I gave my absolute all. I loved the process. I've learned so much. I've grown from it. It was really uncomfortable at times, and I came out the other side. And that
Yes.
for me was the feeling of, yeah, that was it. But honestly, there was, yeah, it wasn't like a, I don't know. I think I just sat in that evening. I didn't celebrate it or anything. I just sat
Yeah.
in. I poured a Negroni, and I sat in and was like, right, well, how can I make it better? What can I do now? What can I, just kind of thinking ahead.
Yeah, I think because you've given so much good wisdom to the boys and other people in life about the fact that it's not about the outcome, it's more about the journey. I think you're kind of fully aware of that yourself. But the one thing I want to touch on that the audience should know that is you put a massive sacrifice out there, because when you left that high paying job in the pharmaceutical game, you fully knew that not only were you removing your safety blanket in terms of wages and all that stuff to pursue your dream, but you knew that your Australian visa was gone. Like, and that's gotta give you some kind of anxiety in yourself, like anxiety, excitement, same kind of thing. But you know what I mean? Like that's gotta have some feeling attached to it, surely.
Yeah, that for me was like and especially because I had I wasn't I'm not a resident, but I had residency in the pipeline for I think November this year. So it was
Really?
like if I can just yeah, so I'm like if I can cling on 10 more, 12 more months, whatever it is. When I flew back from the UK last year, quarantined, whatever, I remember thinking if I can hold on for 12 more months in this job that I didn't hate it and I didn't
You didn't love it
dislike
though.
it. I just felt like I'd kind of grown out of it, and it was almost like an inconvenience because it was paying for me to do, to live in a beautiful spot in Bondi and all of these great things, and it was paying for me to essentially follow my passion. But I thought if I can just cling on for 12 more months, then I'll have my residency, and then I'll have this, and then I can take the jump. But I just thought that is 12 months of just not being happy and fulfilled. And I
Yeah.
think especially my last 6 months there, you're paying all this money to live in this beautiful spot. I barely saw the beach until the last
Yeah.
6 weeks when I knew that I was leaving and I'd handed my notice and done all that stuff. So I spent most of the time in the kitchen, all weekends, all evenings, all mornings, that kind of stuff. And I just thought quality of life for another 12 months just to say I've got a visa. I'm
Mm.
like, I'm not sure it's worth it. And I kind of thought if I had my residency right now, where would I be? And I was like, I'd go back to the UK. And so I thought, okay, I'll just
Do,
go.
do you know?
And so that was like that was the real thing that was a test to me. And still, even now, wake up in the morning, it's July, middle of summer, it's pouring down with rain. And I think, oh, did I make the right decision? And I must have that every day, must have that thought every
Yeah.
single day. But it's more the feeling of thriving than having to constantly stress and pressure and try and fit everything around just for the sake of what I think I should do.
But do you know what a lot of people miss when it's like when I lived in England, um, everything's so close, loose. Like you can just go across to France in a couple of hours. You know, you can be in Ibiza in 2.5 hours. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not like, yeah, it might be raining outside, but you can be in sunshine in 2.5 hours or 3 hours at most. And if you want uninterrupted sunshine, you can go Turkey or Greece or wherever you want to go. Like you are in a place that is highly connected to real good destinations at the drop of a hat with real good flight times. At the end of the day, it's not like Australia. Australia kind of where you're just on your own, aren't you? Really, like there's Tasmania, New Zealand on your doorstep, but other than that, it's nothing really else about, is there? Like you can't exactly just go anywhere.
Yeah, 6 hours flight from Sydney, and you're still in Australia.
Yeah,
You've
yeah,
just
yeah,
got to Perth.
exactly.
But one of the things that I found coming back, and what Australia and traveling and moving away and living somewhere where you don't know anything really gave me, is this sense of there's so much here. There's so much that I did not appreciate. There's so much to do, even
Yeah,
without jumping on a plane. There's so much to do and discover and to learn. And likewise, in when I was in Sydney, I was the only pretty much the only English person working for the company I worked for. And I'd be like, hey guys, I'm going to the Northern Beaches next week. Where's really good? Have you done this? Have you done the bridge climb? Have you done the coastal walk? And they'd be looking at me like, no. And I'm like, you've lived in Sydney,
yeah, yeah,
this
yeah, yeah, yeah.
cosmopolitan city for how many years? And
You've
you've
never
never
done
done
it.
this?
Yeah,
And you've never done that? What do you do on your weekends? Oh, just this, this, and this. And I thought, fuck me, like you are wasting yourself and this beautiful country. And then I come back to the UK
And
with
you're
that
doing the
mindset
same.
of there's so much to do, there's so much to see, there's so much to explore, and there's so many things about the UK which I didn't appreciate at the time that I just love now. And I'm trying to bring a lot of the stuff that I loved in Sydney and the lifestyle and the habits that I built over there and bring them back here. And you don't need sunny weather, and it makes it
Yeah,
easier,
yeah,
of course, but you don't need, sunshine 9 months of the year to enjoy those things or to get up early or to um, find like explore and have weekends away and all of that kind of stuff, go on nice walks and hikes and all that hippie stuff that I'm into. You don't need Australia for that. And as soon as I kind of realized that when I was in Sydney, there's this kind of sense of immense freedom of wherever I go, there's going to be so much stuff to explore and to grow as a person, and just not get complacent.
I love that. I love the fact that you've gone back to the UK with fresh eyes and are doing the things. Every time, sometimes when I go back to the UK, I end up just staying in Cambridgeshire and I might just track off to London one day. But like, I always go back there with a thing. How many times you've been sat in Australia, right? You look on Instagram and someone goes, "Can you believe this is in the UK?" And it'll be a picture of a beach in Cornwall, or it'll be the Devonshire coast, and it's like, it looks unbelievable. And I've seen a few parts of it, but like, you kind of, when you go back, you have every aspiration you're going to go there, but then Luce, I never do it. I never do it.
It's,
But
to be fair, it is hard when you're just back visiting, because I feel like I came back for a month, I think 6 weeks at one point, just for
yeah,
holidays,
yeah,
but like visiting people or for weddings, whatever, and it's just wham, bam, 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 bam. Unless you're here or anywhere for a good amount of time, I don't think that you can
yeah.
truly, explore it. So I found that when I was back visiting, definitely. But now I'm back living, I'm like, right, I've got so much more free time because I'm not flogging drugs. I'm like, there's,
Flogging
the
drugs.
possibilities, the possibilities are endless.
Yeah.
And there's still so much that I haven't done. And there's so much on my Australia bucket list that I haven't done. I never got out to Perth. I spent, a week in Queensland. There's so much more that I
I
want to
wanted you
do.
on the podcast sofa. You know what I mean? Do you know what I'm saying? It'd have gone so much smoother at the start if you'd just been on the sofa. You know what I'm saying? My technical ability is just terrible on these things, I tell you. But no, honestly, like, I agree with you. I agree with you. You got to. It's good that you're back there. It's good that you're embracing it. And this is another reason I just want to tell the audience as well. Like, I thought about selling my apartment quite a few times. Bring the money over here, buy something over here, do this, do that, do this. But part of the reason I'm keeping that apartment is I thought, you know what, that's not a bad little podcast studio. When I go back there, just kit it out, get it all decked out nice, and you could have an upmarket podcast theme in the apartment. That's why I've kept it, really. But well, that's what I tell myself anyway. But give us you've got so many pearls of wisdom, Lord, right? I just got to get you to drop some. I got to ask you for it. I don't know what particular pearls I'm asking for right now. I have no idea. But just give me, right, your top 3 pieces. No, Lord, Lord. I've heard so many bangers from your mind over the years. I just need you to do it. Give me your top one. Give me your top. If you're gonna leave the world with something, leave them with this. What is your top one piece of wisdom and advice for people out there that need it right now? If you left the world today.
Oh God, I'm always like, I truly believe that the advice that we give or anything that I've said, which might have been pearls of wisdom before, it was only because it was relevant to me at the time. And there's some quotes or whatever that I might hear and think, that's shit. And then 5 years down the line, be like, oh my God, that's profound. So I think we only hear it depending on where we're at. But one that kind of came to mind earlier when we were speaking about, people don't always want to see you do well, or they want to see you do well, but not better than them. And it often comes back to reflection within our own selves. Is one that I heard the other day, which I'd heard before, but just seems to hit harder now, I suppose, which is the world is not as it is, it's how we see it. I think I
Yeah,
might have
yeah,
cropped
yeah,
that
yeah,
up.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
So
love that.
everything, the world is how we see it. So how we see other people, the flaws that we see in other people, or perceived flaws we see in other
Are showing
people,
it within
the
us.
things the thing, yeah, the world is a mirror. The things we don't like, and I'm not, perfect. I don't walk around in this airy fairy bubble of, chill. I still get triggered by things. Some things still really piss me off. There's still people that I'm like, oh, you dickhead. But what I see in them is just a reflection of me. And I think the more that I've become aware of that and come to understand that and understand that the world is just how I see it, it's not how it is, the more I've really started to appreciate that and almost become really aware of my behavior. And so if someone's rude to me, it doesn't mean that I have to be rude back or that I need to complain or,
Yes, yes.
anything like that. It really changes the way that I am within the world, which then changes the way that I see the world, which then changes my experience, which then changes my friends. And for me, if that's like a constant growth of moving more towards awareness and purposefulness and just this sense of real contentment and freedom, it's only a good thing, I think.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it. And there's another one that I loved from you. I just remembered it. It was one that you said to Jim. It was about boats and harbours and how boats aren't built to stay in harbours. And can you give me a bit of a context around that and why you delivered that at the time?
I mean, I can't remember where we were, but it was somewhere in Sydney, and I think he had to come back to the UK or he was being deported or something like that.
Being
And it was,
deported. Oh, it's just being deported. It's okay.
we'll just skim
Yeah,
over that
yeah,
point.
yeah. Skip over
Um,
it.
but I remember him speaking to me about this fear of going back, and he hadn't really set up the academy. I don't think the academy was a thing then.
Yeah,
There was some traction, there was some like something sticking, something's working well, but it was this, "Oh, I'm going to have to go either back to the UK or Bali or somewhere, and I like it here. I want to be here." And it was a quote that I'd heard or seen or something that was just like, I always think the good shit sticks.
yeah, yeah,
And it
yeah,
was just somewhere back there. And I said to him, I was like, I've heard this thing and I think you really like it. And it's that, you know, boats are safe in a harbor, but that's not what boats are built for.
yeah, yeah.
And he was like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, that kind of resonates." And then off he's done and done all these amazing things. And we always come back to that quote or that saying and just think, how easy it is to stay safe and to stay with what we know. But that's not what we're here for.
That's not. Yeah,
That's
it's
not
not your
what our
purpose.
purpose is for. It's to get outside and be uncomfortable and challenge ourselves and grow and to fail and to learn from those failings and take something forward. It's not to just, okay, I've made this much money, I'm just going to sit in my house with this and just kind of tick these boxes and move along slowly as long as everything goes right, because not much happens when everything goes right. We learn when things go wrong
Yeah,
or
yeah.
they have a plan B almost. So I love that saying.
That's the one that I remembered. When one of your famous sayings. I know you've got loads of them, but another thing I want to ask you as well, Lord, is because obviously there's a lot going on for you right now. Obviously the book's out, it's selling well. I'll put a link in the description so that people can go and get the book, and a lot of people that listen to this might have already got your book anyway. But like, what is next for Lucy Lord? Like, where are you taking this? Are you building on online cookery show, or what's the goal here? What future things have you got in the pipeline?
I don't really know, to be honest.
I love your
There's a
honesty with
few
this.
things. There's a few things that I really want to do, and I'm almost like when I left the UK 5 years ago, and I needed that space to be like, who am I? What do I love? What lights me up? What brings me passion? What brings me close to this feeling of connection, other people, and purpose and drive and all of that stuff?
Yeah,
I've put myself purposely in that space again so that I can start to learn and understand, like, right, I know my passion, I know what I love to do and what I could spend hours doing, and the thing that makes me not want to pick up my phone and check messages or WhatsApps or whatever. So I know what that is, but now how can I deliver that to people? Is it another book? Is it keep doing books? Is it moving on to the online space and doing
yeah.
online courses? Is it doing events in people stuff? I'm not really sure. And so I think there's all of these things that I am thinking about and want to do. So we probably will do in-person events, probably will do more online events. I've done a few of those before and I love them. But I'm just going to keep trying and leaning towards stuff that feels good, that I want to do. I'm sure a lot of them will come into nothing in the future, but hopefully something will stick and it'll go. And I don't know what that looks like. I know what drives me. I know what I love. I know what my purpose is. I feel it, but I don't know what that looks like. And So I suppose with things like that, you just have to keep one step in front of the other, just moving closer every day, and eventually something will come from it. But I don't know. I can't sit here and
Yeah,
say I want
yeah.
to launch an online cooking school or anything like that.
Do you know what I've always thought, right? When I got this book, right, I thought there's no chance in a month of Sundays that I'm gonna cook from the book, right? There's not. I'm just gonna be totally honest with you, Lord. There's no chance. I like basic things like straight potatoes, I like just basic stuff. I don't want to have to think too aggressively, even if you've written it down. But I thought the one thing Lord could do that I would buy, right, that I'd buy tomorrow, and that I thought would be great, because it's just like a great little thing, is if you if you released like a cookery collection, like pans, knives, just call them the Lord's work, right? Trademark that name, the Lord's work, right? And I would buy every piece of the Lord's work just to have it in the kitchen, even if I didn't use it, just to look at it, because that's my personal opinion. I don't know about what you think, but you could blow the idea out of the water. But I just reckon,
Yeah, merchandise. No,
I reckon
not at all.
the Lord's work is the things that I would personally use as a man. I'd be like, right, I'm cutting my stuff with, I'm still cutting my basic carrots, but I'm cutting it with the Lord's work. Do you know what I'm saying? It just works.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. I think, I'm pretty sure Darren and James have not cooked anything from my. I'm pretty
Absolutely
confident they
zero.
haven't.
I can promise you. I can
Yeah,
promise you
I
zero.
wouldn't. I know. I wouldn't expect them to. I would be more offended if they told me they had and lied than, or had and didn't want to, than they did. And I think that's the thing. Everyone likes different things, and how boring would the world be if we all liked the same things and the same people and the same characteristics? And so, if you don't like, I'm like, if you don't like cooking, then you don't have to buy the book.
Yeah,
It
yeah, yeah,
doesn't.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not
yeah.
offended by it. It's like when people say, "Oh, I hate to say this, but I don't like banana bread." I'm like, that's cool. I don't care. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
it doesn't matter at all. For me, it really is, hoping to inspire people about finding what brings them purpose and passion and connection. And yeah, maybe the brand will extend into merchandise or online events or something which is outside of food and cooking. I don't really know, but I'm open. Yeah, I'm open to all of those ideas and things. But yeah, I definitely don't expect everyone to go and suddenly fall in love with cooking, because I know that it's not everyone's thing. Much like, you could tell me how great podcasting is, but hosting a podcast for me, I'm like,
It's not.
oh,
It's not something
it's
that
not
lights you
something
up.
that
Yeah.
it's not something that lights me up. But that doesn't matter, because I still hugely like. I love listening to podcasts. I respect them so much and the hard work that goes into them. But it doesn't mean that I have to
You
then
don't have
do
to
the
do
same
one
thing.
yourself. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's what I say to people. Everyone says to me, "Hey, Frankie, I want to do a podcast." I'm like, bro, like seriously, there's a lot of work in a podcast, and it's hard to get traction. It's hard to get from 0 to 1,000 listeners on a podcast. It's really hard. And unless you're willing to put the work in and do the graph work, forget about it. Because there's some people that are naturally meant to be doing podcasts, and some people that potentially are naturally meant to be cooking in a kitchen, and some people that are naturally meant to be an accountant. Just do whatever makes you feel like. I tell people to work on the skills they're already good at, rather than trying to go and learn a new skill. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, people see my skipping videos, Lord, on Instagram, right? And they're like, Frankie, I want to skip like you. And I'm like, you got a fuck all chance, not because you can't, but have you been doing it for 20 fucking years? Like, do you know what I mean? I feel as soon as I picked up a rope, I kind of intangibly knew I'm going to be pretty good at this. I'm going to be pretty good at this. I had a feeling about it. You get a feeling about it. When you started cooking and baking and started to put things together, you must have had a little bit of a feeling inside yourself to say, hang on a minute, I'm going to be pretty damn good at this, and I've got a bit of a. Do you get that? Do you get that feeling? Do you think that's the right kind of advice? Am I giving the right kind of advice on that, or am I smoking crack right now? Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
No, I think it goes full circle back to, what we were saying earlier, in that everyone has that thing that lights them up, and it's about finding that thing, and then through finding that thing, you find your people and your tribe. And I'm sure some people, won't like me. I know some people won't like me, won't like my cookbooks, won't ever buy anything from me, won't do all of
yeah,
this, will unfollow me. That is almost like guaranteed. And I think for me, as soon as I know that and I accept it and acknowledge it, and it doesn't bother me or affect my day or what I do. It only drives you further down that passion and that purpose. And it's almost like, I can't remember the quote, so I won't misquote it, but it's like a stoic thing. I think Marcus Aurelius said it. He's like, to wake up and know that someone's going to piss you off, someone's not going to like you, someone's going to be rude to you,
Yep.
someone's going to be unfair, life is going to be unfair, obstacles are going to come your way. As soon as you know that and accept that,
Yep.
then it's like, okay, and you can just keep moving towards your own thing and what lights you up. And like we said, for someone to turn around and say to me like, oh, Lucy, you should do a podcast, I'm like, cool, I get that, you love doing it, but it doesn't light me up. And so
Yep.
if I was to
Yep.
pour time and energy into it, it wouldn't sit right with me, it wouldn't feel right, because it's not something that I, excites me. Whereas
Yep.
if someone was like, oh, hey, Lucy, you should do an online cooking event, I'd be like, amazing. Like, I'd be in
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
element.
Yeah.
So I think it's just, like
100%.
you said, it's listening to what we like to do. And rather than,
Yes.
and, you mentioned maybe putting a book together with all your podcast people. And I think that's an amazing idea. And it's quite similar to Tim Ferriss's Tribe
Yeah.
of
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mentors,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
which, like, for me, I loved that book because you can just pick it up, find people that resonate with you,
And
and then
read their
dive,
piece. Yes, exactly. And
yes,
just
dive
get all,
further into what they say.
yes, hundred
But
percent.
what we can't do, and I think what is so easy to do, is cookie cutter copy their approach or their beliefs. And it's
Yeah.
this like, wake up at 5 in the morning, do this, do that. It's like, well,
Nah.
what happens if you don't like waking up at 5? Or what happens if you've got 3 kids and you're up until 2 o'clock in the morning? The ideas there, the concepts there of finding your own way and starting the day right, but it's then how we interpret that in our own lives and our own individualities of what lights us up that then paves our own life, rather than just, oh, Frankie said it was good to do 2,000 skips, so I'm gonna do that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah.
do you enjoy skipping?
100%. If I told people the amount of work that you have to put in to get your feet to move like my feet move. Yeah, the amount of work that has to go in to cook at the and to create beautiful dishes at the way that you create them. If people knew the amount of work that goes into that, they would fully understand. Actually, maybe I want to take a minute right now and think about what that skipping is to me, what that cooking is to me. What is that to me? Like and I don't know. Oh, actually, I'm going to ask you this then. What is your advice to people out there, Luce, and be clear as you can with it, like on how people can find their purpose in life, like in terms of like what lights them up. I just want your opinion on it.
And it's something that I've thought about quite a lot, because suddenly I feel like I've found mine, but only in the last year have I felt like I found it,
Yeah.
when actually it's been something that's been building up for 5 or 6 years.
Yes.
And if I speak to people who are unhappy in their jobs and that kind of stuff, I'm like, I want to leave, I want to do this, I want to, I see what you've done and I want to, I feel like I should do the same, but I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, okay, how can if I was to speak to myself 6 years ago, what advice would I give? And it would just be to pay attention to the things that we're doing, why we're doing them, how it feels, and how it sits with us, because we're all going to be different. But yeah, just coming back and paying attention, which sounds so, it doesn't sound that exciting. It sounds really boring and really easy. But what I've come to learn is that most people, including myself, have gone through life not paying attention to anything. And so it's
Yes.
like, why am I buying this handbag? Is it to fit in? Is it to, and there's nothing wrong if that's, that's the thing.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong if that's what it is. But yeah, really learning and becoming aware of why we do things. So for me, it was like, I really enjoy cooking, but why? I enjoy baking. I enjoy creating recipes. I don't want to go to an event and cater for 100 people. I don't enjoy that. I enjoy spending hours, days in the kitchen with music podcasts in my own world, creating recipes, and then finding a way to share them artistically and, put them out into the world. That's what I enjoy. And it's just kind of leaning into it more and
Yes,
more. So
yes.
yeah, just I would say just become aware into your daily habits and what you do and what serves you, what doesn't feel good, what feels good. And it'll be different for everyone. So to not compare and judge and think, well, do you know what? I feel good if I sleep in until 8 in the morning. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
And like you've just said there, it's just basically a case of, in my opinion, from what you've said and from my own personal opinion, it's like, it's just honor yourself, be honest with yourself as to what you truly like. I wouldn't, like, personally, I wouldn't be able to go down and do my shadow boxing at the gym and lift weights if I didn't enjoy it and didn't want to make that a daily habit. And, you know, like, the daily, you've only got, in fact, I'll give the audience a great piece of advice here. You've only got to see what what you're truly passionate about. A lot of times, if you look through your credit card and debit card statement and see what you're buying the most, and if you look through your YouTube and Google search history and you see what you're looking at the most. Now, say I look through that and it says boxing's my passion, or it says, or whatever. Say it said boxing was my passion. Obviously, that doesn't mean that you have to go out there and be a boxer to be in line with that passion. You could set up a boxing store on Shopify and still be aligned with your passion and make money out of it, right? So there's lots of things you could do to self-identify what your passion or what your purpose might be, but also be fully open to trying lots of things, in terms of, like, you know, being open to try new things in order to find out what it is as well. So you got to be open to that. I mean, but
And drop the like the outcome, like you were saying earlier,
yes,
drop the title and the expectation of, be it salary, or just drop all of that
yeah,
stuff and just be like, you know, I'm just going to do more of what I really enjoy, and through that things will come. And
yes,
I think the more you know, the more you know, the more you know. And the more I've kind of stepped into this food world, I'm like, there's 100 different jobs: food photography, food stylist. There's a job where you can literally go and pick props for food shoots. And I'm like, I would love that. I would get lost in that kind of job. But
yes,
there's
yeah.
100 different things. It's not just, you know, there's not just one
There's
thing.
not one thing. No,
Um,
no, no. And I love that. I think that should cover it for a lot of people. It's just like lean into things that you genuinely enjoy and explore them a little bit more, and it'll all work out. But one thing I just want to pick up that Luce said was the fact that, you know, 3 years there, she thought she wasn't going anywhere, but she was just kind of mulling around. But that was all putting together the pieces that allowed her to be where she is now, with a best-selling book and all this stuff that she's got going on now. It's it's like a hockey stick growth at the end, but there was a like a steady rise there for a little while, and then you went off like this, and that's how a lot of listenership has come to the podcast, and it's how a lot of things go off. So I just think, if you're there right now and you think that you've not found it yet, or you're stressing out about finding it, just try not to stress about trying to find it. Try and just enjoy all the blessings that you have, getting up in the morning and feeling the day, you know, the fact that you might have your mum and dad still alive, and all this kind of stuff that people just kind of forget, and all all the beautiful things that we all have that cost us nothing, but we don't appreciate in the moment. When we start appreciating that, that's when I think that your purpose turns up for you, and everything starts to get a little bit more beautiful. Do you know what I'm saying?
yeah, I really think there's so much beauty in life when we slow down. And for me, it's something that I've got to really force, or instill, because I have this habit of just going at everything full speed and this and that. And I feel like I work really well in that, and juggling at that kind of high speed, high pressure, high momentum. But actually, all of the kind of little beauties of the day just
Yep.
slip through my fingers when it's like that. And the beauties of the journeys, or the beauties of, you know, pulling a cookbook together, just slip through the day, and I don't stop and appreciate them when I'm moving at that speed. So for me, I have to really force like this life in the slow lane almost, because then you really do start to see everything that you're grateful for, and from that place you start to build more of it. It's this kind of abundance
Yeah,
mindset
yeah, yeah,
of,
yeah. It's
you
momentum
know what,
builds momentum, doesn't it?
yeah, it's momentum, and it's not something you have or don't have. It's a mindset and a way of seeing the world and of moving through your day. And for me, there's been such a profound shift from moving towards just ticking off to-dos and this and that and this and that, even if it's something I love doing, into just moving, you know, a lot more slower, and starting to pay more attention to myself and what am I doing and why am I doing it and how does it feel when I do it? How do I feel after? How do I feel before? How do I feel during it? All those kind of things. And that's when you start to pick out like, oh, actually, I've been meeting my mate, I don't know, Rob. I don't know a Rob, but I've been meeting my mate Rob for coffee once a month. It's 3 hours. I come away feeling drained. It doesn't
Yes,
add
notice
anything
it.
to my life. I'm sure it doesn't add anything to his, but it's a habit that I'm stuck in and I'm doing it.
Yeah,
Why am I doing it?
yeah,
And then just pulling the plug on that and pulling the plug on other things and habits or hobbies. Like I love strength training. And it's for me, it's the feeling of going in and coming out feeling empowered and feeling strong. But there's other
yeah.
things I don't enjoy doing. And I'm like, okay, I don't enjoy that. Why skipping? I'm like, why am I trying to skip like Frankie Lee? I don't enjoy skipping. Let's drop that. Let's do this. Let's do that. All that kind of stuff.
That's it. Like, and I'm happy in the fact that I'll do the skipping, you do the cooking. All right, like it was sweet. Like we ain't got to
Perfect.
we ain't got to encroach on each other's disciplines right now. Like,
But it's the same, like the
yeah, yeah,
undercurrent. So I think what everyone brings is completely different, but the
yes,
undercurrent,
and
which is
that's
that feeling
beautiful.
of like, yeah, that feeling of being lit up and doing something we love, that's the feeling that we have in common and other people have in common. But it all translates differently into the world, and that's what makes it beautiful.
Yes, yes, and Lucy Lord, that is why I got you on here, because you make everything I say, you put it all together, and you make it sound even better because you say it, and you're right, and it's just this is why we get the wisdom of the Lord on the show, and that's it. But Lucy Lord, drop your website, drop your Instagram so people can follow you. And let the people know where they can get your stuff. So, and I'll put all the links in the description as well. So just drop your Instagram for them.
Thank you, Frankie. So yeah, my website is www.lordlucy.com. And then if you want to subscribe to Supper Club, which is the free weekly
Supper
newsletter,
Club.
that comes out every Friday, and it's my biggest passion. I absolutely love it. It doesn't cost a thing for people to join or be a part of. And then my Instagram handle is @LordLucy.
At Lord Lucy, and you should definitely follow her because she is a good woman. And do you know what? Thank you so much for your time on the podcast.